Welcome back to, we have official new title now, Camille.
That's
Signs and
right.
headlines.
Welcome to Signs and Headlines. Yee.
A special collab project between Camille and I because we were just talking right before getting on. These are some historical times. I feel like a week feels like everything could have just happened in a year, Like that's just how much stuff
Yes.
we're dealing with.
Yes. And we need a debrief every week to just cycle through it all.
Consider this a grounding and maybe your opportunity to stay up to date and informed and hopefully learn a little
Yeah.
astrology.
I love that. Grounding, learning. Great. My two favorite things.
All these things. But those keywords there were very much not on the cosmic agenda this week. It's always interesting to come out of an eclipse,
Mm.
and then I always usually get this sort of energetic hangover. Like my sleep takes a second to re-regulate. I don't know if your sleep was kind of crazy this eclipse season. Mine
Yes.
sure was.
Always is.
Libra season start this week. We had
Yes.
Mars almost like beating Libra to the punch, It's like Mars moved into Scorpio and then Libra season formally began. We also had Neptune opposing Sun. We had a Mars square Pluto. I mean, this was like a pretty big week. I know it happened after an eclipse, but the aftermath is still reverberating.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's crazy that it's lining up. Like the timing of intensity, like to have this right after eclipse season is wild. And I really feel
Hmm
like the main power player of this week was that Mars in Scorpio square
hmm
Pluto aspect and transit. Yeah, it was very Marsy week.
Yeah. Oh my God, I know last week Mars was in Libra. Okay, so this week
Mhm.
we had a very different energy. And I think you kind of already felt it immediately, right? We were just like plunging into the depths of Scorpio is a
Yes,
pretty common phrase, I feel like. But things got deep this week and there were significant turning points.
absolutely.
Was there anything notable for you from like a headline perspective this week? Because we're going to be covering quite a few things. And again, sorry if we don't
I
cover
know.
everything. We're trying. We're trying.
The headline that actually really took me the most by surprise this week was one that I wasn't clued in on. I guess it was something that was making the rounds on TikTok.
Mhm.
Apparently, the end of the world was supposed to be this week.
We
Is
survived the
hilarious. We
rapture.
survived the rapture. Mars and Scorpio coming up here in a literal way to represent like death and like going behind the veil. That's something that I'm happy not to have been aware of until after we were supposed to have been like gone. But how wild Mars square Pluto and Rapture. I feel like that's the most literal outcome.
That also coinciding with the Neptune opposing Sun, like there was just a lot of divinity in the air. And
Yes.
when you think about maybe, some form of Delulu,
I was gonna say Delulu. You said it first. Yeah. Well,
it was just really interesting to observe. And I'm genuinely like curious, like, are those people okay?
yeah.
Like, now that this has came and went, like, what's happening here?
I feel like it's like when cult leaders are like, this is the end of the world, and then it doesn't happen. And what you have to do is you have to double down on the cognitive dissonance that got you to believe in the rapture. So I feel like those people are probably like just making up a reason why now it hasn't happened and why it's going to happen later.
Oh my God,
But I
the
can't imagine
spinning.
being constantly proven wrong. I just like no one will know when the world ends.
Yeah, I wasn't privy to the Rapture until literally getting on TikTok and
Ah,
Rapture talk was in full swing. And I'm like, wait a minute, not the Rapture happening on the Neptune Sun opposition?
oh my God, that too. Like we all just disappear and we disseminate in a holy cloud of light. Yeah, and enter a new kingdom.
Love and
Yeah.
light. That was right around the time that Trump had made that big announcement this week, right, on Tylenol.
Mm,
And how pregnant women should not be taking Tylenol, and because that's apparently causing autism. The memes that came out of that, because Neptune also brings about virality and like it kind of catching like wildfire. And so the intersection between Rapture and Tylenol memes were so good.
oh my
We're so-
God, I wish I had seen literally any of them. Why didn't you
what?
send them to me? Yeah, I haven't seen
Ah! Oh
it.
my God, on
I'm
my
very
thread.
much tiptoeing around the news these days, so I miss
Yes.
these things, like even the funny things, but I'm sure
Yes.
it was hilarious.
We are deeply unserious as a society, and I
I
can't
think we
imagine
have
like
to be at this point.
At
Yeah.
such times. And you know what? These are also, this is like some form of resistance, right? Like finding the humor in the fuckery or
Yes.
finding the humor in the, well, in this case, the insanity.
I remember one meme I saw that I relate to deeply was like when you wake up and you're a millennial who survived 9/11, the war on terror, the financial collapse, 2012, end of the world, this end of the world. Just like we're here again, Pluto and Scorpio generation, just living through the end constantly.
This is one hell of a Pluto square
hmm
for this millennial generation. I'm not gonna lie. Like these next 10 years, especially with Pluto being out of bounds in and out, it really is going to feel like
Ay,
I
ay.
don't even know, honestly. I don't even know because
Yeah.
this you already feel the pressure cooker and you're like, "Oh my God, I have like 10 more years to look forward to this." The Pluto square is normally freaking two like a seven like it's like a
Yeah.
7 year thing and now I'm like tagging on 3 extra years. Great, great, great.
Well, it's
Great.
starting off wild, so hopefully it
Mm.
chills out. We'll see.
Yeah, so similar to last week, let's maybe break down how these energies would translate for the week and then kind of explore all the different ways it's come out, at least between you and I. You talked about Mars early, right? Mars making this
Yeah.
aspect to Pluto. How would you describe the Mars and Pluto square? Or like what words would come to mind naturally?
Explosive, volatile, very, very intense. I do think it's like a pressure cooker kind of energy. I think when Mars especially hits Pluto by square, it's like those urges or desires or underworldly or underbelly things, maybe that
Mm-hmm.
have been festering within us or in society, are activated, right? And obviously, sometimes in ways that are awful and violent, but also sometimes in ways that are deeply empowering if
Mm-hmm.
channeled really, really well. And just like some Mars themes aside from the Rapture, just like also like truth telling, I think was out a lot this week.
Mm-hmm.
Sneak attacks, intense emotional commitment to something, even if it's a little bit delulu, right? So Sun
Mm-hmm.
opposite Neptune also happening in the background. A redemption arc with Jimmy Kimmel. I think that's Mars and
Mm-hmm.
Scorpio, like reclaiming power, like give me that back. Severing, revolution, like all of that was just so much in the news this week. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that speaks so archetypically to not only Mars and Scorpio, but Mars specifically square Pluto in
Mm-hmm.
Aquarius. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I love that. Not that I wouldn't have expected something to manifest, especially in these times when you get a square of this nature, you're like, something's definitely going to transpire.
hmm
But Pluto has a tendency of like smothering, right? Whatever it touches. And so part of me was like, oh my God, are we only going to really see the effects from this week or what's been talked about behind the scenes or you know what I mean? Like, what's the
Yeah.
real thing this week is covering at that full moon in Aries on October 6th? Because,
Right.
you know, then you have the full moon in the sky lighting everything up. And so, as much as Pluto can bury you underground, it's almost like it's so bright, it's
Mm.
undeniable.
Yeah.
But when I think of Mars and Scorpio, I think of assassination or anything Mercury, Scorpio, Pluto, Mars, Scorpio, Pluto, right? And
Yeah.
so it's fascinating that this week Trump's like assassin. I didn't, okay, also, there's too much news because I forgot this was also a thing. Like, I forgot Trump had an assassination attempt as he was campaigning for president. And
Remember that? Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, this is not the same guy from like July? Like, what? Completely
The
different.
times we're living in. Yeah.
But this guy tried to literally take, like, he was found guilty, of course, which, funnily enough, he apparently had the most evidence accumulated against him during last eclipse cycle back in September. So it's still on this, like, Virgo Pisces. And here
Yes.
we are at this Virgo eclipse. We, like, get a conclusion from it. But he
Mm.
tried to stab himself with the pen to, like, try to get out of it or something. And the court pictures and the court drawings are hilarious. I'm like, this is the most dramatic thing. Like,
Oh
he's trying
my
to
God.
exit.
Self-annihilation is
Mars
also very Mars
Pluto.
Pluto. Yes.
Totally. I'm like, wow, this is layers, like Inception, honestly.
Yes.
LOL. But when you think of Mars Pluto, naturally, LOL, the way I'm gonna transition into this, you'd be proud of me. When I think of Mars Pluto, I naturally think about a funeral. Also, because it's somber, because it's grieving. So obviously, we start the week off with Charlie Kirk's funeral. Dun dun dun, Mars Pluto. But it's interesting, right? Because his funeral literally happened right on the Virgo eclipse, literally at 29 degrees Virgo. We don't know his time, and we're not necessarily going to spend too long on it, but Look at that Venus in Virgo getting activated by like the eclipse, which it's fascinating considering I did not realize how prominent or how big of an impact he was gonna have. Again, I did not really know who this person he was until like watching South Park. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden everything went down. So it's kind of shocking to me to like observe him as this Christian martyr and like the memorial service was
Yeah,
watch
I saw
also.
some of the clips of what people said, and the body language experts were all on deck the next day, like decoding it. Odd. That's what I'll say. What of what I saw, it was odd.
Very odd. I mean, when you think about Virgo symbolism, again, like it was just tying into all like this martyrdom, which again, Neptune and Aries times, there are false prophets, there are spiritual myths, there are, emerging leaders, right? There's all of this connotation baked into the cosmic cauldron. But it's also interesting that Charlie also has a natal Mars in Scorpio.
Be one
It's
of, yeah, the many of folks we look at that have that. I also wanted to talk about how Virgo, like we need to talk about how Virgo as an energy is quite messy. It's
oh
quite like
yes.
sloppy, and it's quite like this is like meant to be maybe organized, or like all the moving parts are there, but they're moving in a really odd, messy way. And so I
Mhm.
feel like of the clips that I've seen of the service, it was like, oh, you know what I mean? Something unrefined about it, which is interesting because it hit right before the sun would have entered Libra, where maybe there would have been a
Yeah.
chance for that.
I feel like based on his Scorpio, Libra, and Virgo, it'd be like, we need to
Mm.
keep this chicer, you know?
Yeah,
Like, like it just has to not be like a wrestling match, basically.
absolutely. Yeah.
But what is interesting also is Venus is on his Chiron. Think about like a martyr or a widow, right?
Yes.
That's also baked into the symbolism there, especially with that Saturn opposition. I don't, sometimes I don't really know what to make of it, right? Because it's like, yeah, the symbols describe that, and she fits the definition of what hopefully these symbols are talking about. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, it's helping me see how astrology really is, again, a language, a tool, and your biases and the way you view the world is going to play so hard into how you interpret a chart. So you have to
Definitely.
know your astrologer's biases, y'all. Like, that's just fundamentally important.
Hmm. I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on away from Charlie Kirk's funeral, we get to Monday. I'm like, what even happened Monday? So Monday was the formal reinstating of Jimmy Kimmel. The moment Mars moved into Scorpio, he only came online the day after.
Yep.
However, we're not going to necessarily talk about his chart. We talked about it last time, although his chart features that Mercury in
Mm.
Scorpio. Or actually, you know what? Maybe let me pull up the chart because I did you catch the monologue, by the
I
way?
didn't. No.
Okay. So I did personally. I like actually was one of the many, many people that tuned in. So his ratings obviously shot up like crazy, which is also
Mm.
like a Mars thing, right? Mars
Yeah.
Scorpio thing. But to me, his monologue was very emotional, which is very Scorpio, Mars Scorpio coded, because you're speaking about emotional truth and vulnerability.
Mm.
But it was also so Libra on his
Okay.
Venus, because it was like I was really touched by Erica and her forgiveness. And it's interesting, she's not the only one that like or he's not the only one that said that. I think like Tim Allen, LOL, also said like Erica's forgiveness made him want to forgive the killer of his own father like many years later. And I'm like, wow, there is some impact here. It's
Yeah.
just not resonating with me and my politics. But
Yeah.
but it was fascinating to see Jimmy double down on the Libra, right? Like I am honoring both sides. I'm giving some compassion in the mix. So I think for me, it was kind of it was expected. He didn't go as hard as I thought he was gonna go. He didn't, it was back to business as usual. And it did make me think about, the idea that, okay, like we fought so hard, or people fought really hard to get you back within a week, like that's impressive.
It is.
But then you think in the same week, or maybe this was last week, you get, I think, Mahmoud Khalil, right? He's getting basically sent to, I forget, Syria? Or like he's literally
Mhm.
getting deported outside the country. And he tried to exercise his right to freedom of speech. And so not every not everyone is created equal in this social stratosphere, of course.
Yeah, I feel like Libra can amplify the double standard
Hmm.
that takes place in society. And so even though this was a winning moment for Jimmy Kimmel, there's many other moments or many other things that are happening that are symbolic of what happened to Jimmy that are continuing to persist. And to be political, right, it's just because it happened to a white guy. Of course, we're
Hmm.
going to like rally and pay attention, right? And like celebrities spoke up. And so even
Hmm.
still, it's just like, y'all aren't seeing it. And one of the things I thought
Hmm.
about with Mars and Scorpio, but then, the sun in Libra is like that kind of intensity of Mars is getting muzzled, right? It could have been
Mm.
really a moment for Jimmy Kimmel to have been like 10 toes down in a way that's actually not passive or not like, egalitarian like Libra would be. But then
Hmm.
Libra influence is there. So there's just like, okay, I'm also going to toe the line and play to an audience, which is a
Hmm.
little bit disappointing because I think it's a little bit phony. But yeah, it
Hmm.
didn't agree with my politics either from what you're telling me of it.
It's so profound when like the universe reflects all the different layers of how a
Hmm.
transit can manifest. And I had sent you this article this week, that or an op-ed, I should say, that Roxanne Gay wrote in the New York Times.
Yeah.
And it was called Civility is a Fantasy. Okay, so I have Roxanne Gay's chart. If you hadn't already read this, you should, because I think this was such a powerful piece to come at the beginning of Libra season as Neptune is opposing Libra, because maybe there is this idea of we have to rethink how we approach conflict, especially when people keep throwing around this idea of civility and like you aren't protesting the right way. It's peaceful protesting, but then it turns violent. Like, oh, funny, I wonder why. Roxanne has a Libra stellium.
That's wild. And she has the signature we were talking about last week, which is Mars opposite Chiron and Aries. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense. I was surprised to see so much Libra given the title of the article. And I hadn't seen her chart before. But that's what Mars in Libra is going to deliver. It's going to deliver unexpected results. And one of the results of maybe Mars in Libra is saying civility is actually a farce.
Mm-hmm.
Civility is actually an unwinnable kind of agenda or an unwinnable kind of strategy in the long
Mm-hmm.
term. Because basically, what it is, and I was texting you about it, it's not our issue with civility per se, because there's many uncivil things happening on Maha's side. It's just like, please be quiet. Please stop talking about the things that you're seeing us do. It is uncivil. To me, that's kind of like maybe what I
Mm-hmm.
felt was the thesis or what I kind of got from this
Mm-hmm.
article. Yeah, civility is a way again to keep people like muzzled or to, yeah.
Yeah, it does take me back to even like the like colonial origins, right? Like the idea of savage and
Mm-hmm.
civil, And so when you think of the word civil, right? And this actually hits like a pretty interesting personal point for me too, because I remember one of my closest friends and like one of the last fights that we had in the ultimate end of our relationship was basically over something like social justice oriented at a party. And I remember inadvertently causing a scene, but it was my
Mm-hmm.
party, so I can cry if I want to.
Amen.
And, she basically said that was really inappropriate what you did. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, why, when would there be an appropriate time to address it if it's not in the moment? And the reality is, like, the other person's trying to like argue with me
Yeah.
about it. They're not even trying to receive it. So, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Because it's frustrating. So, you're discounting all this rage and all this lived experience. And it was just such an interesting moment around, yeah, you can't actually be civil and expect you to feel dangerous or feel like you mean something sometimes.
Yeah. And it's this feeling of like, it's not the right setting to have this discussion, but then it's like, when is?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
when is the, and if we wait for that moment, why? Like, why is that again, the only way forward to like, have this incredibly protracted process of like performative peace
Yeah,
and diplomacy when we could
literally.
just tell it like it is and rip the band-aid off and we're kind of done and the truth
Mm-hmm.
is out there and now you do with it what you want, which is the
Mm-hmm.
gift of Scorpio.
Yes. Also, of course, we're recording today. We got news earlier today about Assata Shakur, who has passed away. Rest in peace. And interesting, right? Because she was a Cancer stellium, and her whole thing was also to be a more active participant in the uprising against the oppression. When you are active, you are going to be engaging in conflict, which unfortunately for her meant that she had to impose self-exile so
Yeah.
that she would ultimately be safe away from her homeland. So
Mm,
no one necessarily wants to resort to conflict or resort to dire situations, but the reality is when you're starting on an unbalanced playing field, which Libra is all about trying to promote the balance, it's never going to work because you're always going to be set like standing on very different footing, and it's going to feel difficult to bridge the divide or the gap.
yeah, like, and balance to you maybe won't feel like balance to me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I find it interesting that Mars square Pluto in the sky right now is so evocative of the revolutionary spirit, and now we have Assata being brought up into the cultural conversation again. Not that
Mm-hmm.
Mars Pluto is an aspect of death, but just that now it's kind of like that cosmic mirroring, right? We're seeing the thoughts and the ideas and the reverence of this revolutionary kind of like peak or come up with Mars square Pluto in the sky. I saw a lot of people like talking about how her book was like very,
Mm-hmm.
very meaningful to them. And that
Mm-hmm.
made me then want to read the book. I was like, will I
Mm-hmm.
become like a little Mars square Pluto revolutionary? Am I
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? So it's like these things are
Mm-hmm.
not for naught. There's something about them that is deeply resonant to the times that we're in.
Absolutely. And her Cancer stellium, I mean, excellent memoirist,
Ah,
so
yes.
impactful. And I think she has a Mercury retrograde as well in Cancer, which would give her that natural counterculture tilt, but also
Yeah.
being such a valuable memory keeper
Mm, yeah.
from the other side.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Not to inadvertently make like this first half of the segment. I promise we have other fun pop culture stuff to bring up some because this was a big week for Rihanna fans, which we will get to in a second.
Mhm.
But the other sort of big political thing pervasive in New York City, because I live in New York City, was the UN General Assembly, which I thought also was a beautiful representation of this idea of civility is a fantasy. Because while this was a very consequential UNGA, all things considered, we are at a we've been at a dire point as it relates to Palestine, but this has just felt like the most impactful UNGA that has gone anti-Israel, essentially.
Yeah.
It was really striking to hear a lot of South American presidents actually, or dignitaries, vocalize for more active military intervention. We also saw, Italy, Greece, and Tunisia and Spain, they all sent their navy ships to accompany the global flotilla. The world is shifting. People are actually putting military, forces back or their country's resources to back aid into Gaza, but Netanyahu is still doubling down. Like he just delivered his speech today at the UN. He thinks it's disgusting that people have acknowledged the Palestinian state. And
Mm.
his army has hacked into literally everyone's cell service in Gaza to broadcast this speech, which is very reminiscent of Hitler in the Holocaust. And so when you look at Netanyahu, it's so funny. You posted this thing this week on social media about Libra, and there was a lot about democracy. And interesting how some of the most terrorizing and polarizing figures of history have significant Libra or Venusian placements.
Yeah, and that made me want to say, remember when I told you, because we were talking about like, why is that? Why is Libra energy, or like maybe even was Venus energy so prominent in charts of people who do these things? And it's this feeling of if I am not at peace, you will not be at peace either. And so
Hmm.
therefore, I'm going to wage genocide against you. Because yeah, your presence, right, for my
Hmm.
personal equilibrium isn't it, so that's I think
Hmm.
where that malice really comes
Hmm.
from, and they think they're really doing something I guess that's like needed, or again like civil, or like of course this just makes sense, right? But
Hmm.
subjectively, it's just like it's kind of ragey
Mm.
underneath it all. Yeah.
Netanyahu has a C-rated chart, so when you think about that 29 degrees, Sagittarius rising, that is interesting considering our last eclipse in Virgo at the beginning of this week at 29 degrees
Square.
Virgo.
Yeah.
We're also, again, coming up on a pretty consequential October. We have that really loud full moon in Aries happening at 14 degrees, right on his nodal axis. Next week on September 29th will be a first quarter Capricorn moon. That's at 7 degrees. That is opposing his Uranus in Cancer, squaring Mercury in Libra. Again, October has always, especially over the last couple of years, has been such a hot zone for Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
But his chart is really, really activated this month. And so it will be interesting to see like kind of what comes of it. I know he actively avoided specific airspace regions to avoid getting arrested. And I think Trump even said this week he wasn't going to allow Israel to annex the West Bank, which, TBD, because this man says one thing and does another. But Trump and Netanyahu will be meeting next week,
Mm.
Monday, formally.
Got it. So we will be here next week talking about that meeting.
At the first quarter moon. I mean, it's kind of cool to see like how the planets are moving like week by week and like how it's coming, what's arising with all these players. But yeah, definitely this is going to be a Libra season that will be very loud.
Yeah.
But in some last positive news, Mars and Scorpio squaring Pluto to me also can indicate a moment of like, as you said, I'm finally speaking my truth, and maybe it is going to be involving severing ties with some old relationships. Microsoft officially severed its ties to supply or at least allow the Israeli military to have access to its AI program softwares. But either way, huge win. Huge win.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So the square really can go either way.
Yes. And in its best possible
Mhm.
manifestation,
Mhm.
we got the reveal of Rihanna's bebe, her baby girl, Rocki,
Yeah.
Irish Mayor. So technically, Rocki was born on September 13th, but we only got the announcement on the 24th.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
What a
First thoughts.
surprise.
First thoughts on Rocki.
Well, Rocky with the eye and the boxing gloves that were pink is just so like chef's kiss for being born with Mars and Libra. Like fighting, but we're beautifying it, right? Or even like Rocky,
Mm.
that puts me in mind of like, Rocky the boxing franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that Mars and Libra I think is just standing out really loudly as just like that. And she got her girl, like that just makes a lot of sense to me. Um, I
Yeah.
also think I said to you or in some comment that she's probably going to start talking really quickly because of that Mercury Cazimi
Oh my
exalted
God.
in Virgo and that Gemini Uranus moon. So she's going to be a chatterbox, I would
Oh my
assume.
gosh.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You said Rocky, of course, you think of ASAP, and he has his Venus in Leo. Like, it's such a daddy girl, like, you know what I
Oh,
mean? Like, it's like, oh, same name, Venus and Leo. That's very, very cute. But honestly, I feel like she's gonna be a star,
yeah.
Like, this is a chart, I feel like, of what is going to be someone super impactful. I mean, how could she not? She has ASAP and Rihanna as her parents, which
Yeah.
it does make me wonder about the Virgo and the South Node and the Sun and Mercury, the idea of her life revolving potentially around like someone else's life and identity. And so like what does that really mean? Is that Rihanna's identity? Is it the family's legacy, like her siblings? Like there's a lot to consider here. But undoubtedly like a phenomenal worker too. Like someone who's gonna like
Absolutely.
really create.
Yeah, family legacy also with respect to Sun opposite Saturn. There's just always something there. First, like to be a daddy's girl. I think it makes sense
Hmm.
there to model one's identity after, right, Saturn, the dad, but
Hmm.
also like family burden and, right, maintaining legacy, like all of that moving forward. You can see maybe how that could come up as well.
I mean, also she's an eclipse baby,
Yes.
which I think like all the kids are eclipse babies, if I'm not mistaken. Like Riza, let's see, is he an eclipse baby? Riza, sun on the North Node,
Wow.
sun in the North Node, and then Riot. Oh, no, Riot's not an eclipse baby. But, you know, might as well be.
Oh my God, he has Mercury Virgo too with Mars Virgo. Oh, it's almost like she has named them Riot, Rocky as like what their personalities are going to be or what the dynamic is going to be. I feel like
Yeah.
it's just going to be such a boisterous household.
Oh my gosh. It's interesting that Riot has the Venus retrograde in Leo and
Oh,
Rocki has the direct and her south node, his Mars on her south node, Chiron on like I do wonder about this relationship, Riot and Rocki, actually. But it
yeah.
seems very sweet with the Jupiter Cancer conjunct Juno, almost like, okay, we're all taking care of each other. Like we are
Mhm.
all traveling together. I think you made a comment like that in our matriarch episode with Beyonce, Solange, and Tina, like how they're all traveling together.
Yeah, they're traveling together. That's so cute.
Well, obviously, we have to look at Mama.
Mama.
We don't know Rocky's time, unfortunately, but we will, I'm sure someone's gonna find out that birth certificate, Lord.
Yes, I'm sure.
But like, how freaking cute is
Cute,
this
right?
nodal synastry? Oh.
That is really cute. Yeah. Wow. So like her and Rihanna have probably done this before. That's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. I love how Rocky's Venus is in Rihanna's fifth house. That's just like, adoration, love, the first girl.
Yes. Also, it's interesting because it's on her Lilith, and this has been
Mhm.
such a pain point for Rihanna. She's wanted it for so long, which also I was very surprised because a lot of people messaged me after and was like, wait, didn't she already have a girl? I'm like, what are you talking about? This is all
No.
she's ever wanted in her life.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see Lilith potentially reflecting that, like maybe a specific gender of a kid you want, or like maybe even just the idea of wanting children in the fifth, but maybe not being able to do so before. Like
Yeah.
it feels interesting to consider. Um, Also, I love, oh my God, Rocky's series in Aries
I was just looking at that. Yeah,
is
right on top of
literally
her
on.
Venus.
I'm like freaking screaming because that is such like mothering, nurturing symbolism. And
Yes.
I mean, it's so loud. Venus and Moon. Well, first of all, Rihanna having the Venus and Moon in Aries. And I'm actually curious to hear your answer to this because someone had left me a question about wanting to better understand why Rihanna is so poppin', basically, and why she's so beloved. And
Mhm.
if we can explain that astrologically, because she's not their cup of tea. And I'm like,
No.
yeah, okay, that's fair. Not everyone has to be everyone's cup of tea, but I am curious to hear what your perspective is on what makes Rihanna such a household name or so beloved, because for me, I immediately see the Venus moon and I'm like, on the ascendant, bet.
Yes. Well, so in whole sign houses, she would have both benefics in the first house. And so what that is
Hmm.
doing is saying something incredibly positive about her character, how she comes across. If I saw Venus, right, and Jupiter in the first house of a client, I would be like, people probably like you. There's something about you. You're charming. People want to be in that warmth. They want to be in that radiance.
Hmm.
I think Jupiter in the first house is also just like, you're funny. You're larger than life. There's something really big about you, right? That people just can't help but to flock to.
Hmm.
Ascendant ruler in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is also really fun loving. It does not take itself seriously, which is one of the reasons I find Rihanna to be incredibly endearing.
Hmm.
And then I also think there's an element of that retrograde Mercury in Aquarius that gives her those one-liners, those sound bites, those kind of like things that live on forever in like gifts. Or in moments that we remember Rihanna for as like, being kind of a snapback queen. And I think
Hmm.
the Aquarius Mercury can be really, really good at crafting witty replies.
Yeah, I love that. Also, she loves Real Housewives,
Oh,
which
really?
you wouldn't expect from someone like of Rihanna's stature sometimes, but she
Yeah.
is like she's like such a fan. She'll like actively reach out to some of the housewives and like, I love you this season. Like, it's a whole thing. But I think of that as the Mercury retrograde in Aquarius because it's like, I don't know, not to say it's like not a cool thing. Like I enjoy it, but I wouldn't necessarily describe it as part of like her cool girl image, yet it
Right.
adds to it. You know what I mean?
Totally. And for the person who's like, Rihanna's not my cup of tea, that's also Venus and Aries on the ascendant, right? Venus in Aries can be women who receive backlash with respect to how they present themselves, or there's something about them maybe that's divisive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another
Mm-hmm.
way that Aries can play off as well.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that. What I was gonna add to that, because all those things make a lot of sense to me. Um, in theory, right, if this is like the actual time, her
Mm,
midheaven would be at 11 Cap, which would be right on that Neptune. And so when I look at Neptune, Neptune's kind of a fame maker in the chart, right? Because there
yes,
is an ability to tap into collective consciousness. You just if you exist as you are and you have a defined enough ego, which her Venus and Moon in Aries in her first and Jupiter in Aries like
totally.
naturally gives her, and the Mercury in Aquarius, right? Her filter is pretty fixed. There's a strong enough boundary that you're not going to necessarily allow other people to tell you who to be. Instead, you get to define the trend, you get to set the trend, you get to really like again tap into the consciousness, and so you naturally people like want more of you. You naturally
Yes.
go viral as such.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And Capricorn stellium also, so she's like her fans are also going to be like ride or die long term.
Yeah. I think
11th
it's
house
funny
Mercury too.
how her fan base is called the Navy, and
Yes.
Neptune, ocean, the water, the Navy.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Plus, she's from Barbados, and Neptune is literally on the flag of Barbados, I think, the trident.
Yes,
So
yes.
that being so part of her legacy as well, that Neptune showing up in a lot of ways.
I think she recently posted a picture and there was Neptune there as well. I was like,
Yes,
oh my God, she's
the
so
goddess of, yeah,
Pisces.
very Pisces. So Pisces, but also like very midheaven Neptune, if that is her birth time.
Yeah, it's like layer on layer, right? Because you
Yeah.
also see 12th house suns. I think maybe did you say this in one of our episodes, one of our many conversations, like 12th house suns, presidents, and that connection. So Maurice Hernandez also talks about the 12th house being again like a career house. Having Pisces in the 12th house, right? Again, it's just echoing. The chart echoes naturally. And so I'm like, Rihanna definitely accumulated all these brownie points. And I feel like, in Stephen Forrest's books, he talks about when you have the South Node in Virgo, there is like almost you've done lifetimes of service.
Yeah.
And so you've accumulated all of these brownie points that you get to cash in this lifetime. So, you should
Interesting.
say no more. You should not feel burdened or obligated to be in service of everyone else. So, like all of us asking her for more music, we're really the South Node in Virgo for her. Sad to say.
Yeah.
But you then see it translate to wow, like her success is amazing and her chart was so set up to have her be successful, right? Like what are the chances this girl from Barbados like gets
Yeah.
signed at a very early age to Jay-Z's record label, Mars and Sag ruling the chart, and then basically like has still continued to have such strong staying power despite not putting out music, instead building her own career as a businesswoman, like a billionaire businesswoman. Insane in the best
It is
way.
insane. I'm noticing now the trine and mutual reception between Jupiter and Mars in her chart, which I do
Mm,
think does give one the capacity to keep going, 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 going. And
yeah.
that could be symbolic of career. She's had like over 20 years, right, of being here. But that's
Oh
also
my God,
very
has she?
2005 was Pond to Replay, right? It's
Oh
2025, right?
my
So she's been around for about
God.
20 years. Yeah, isn't that wild? Her and
Oh
Lady
my
Gaga, you don't
God.
even think about it, but that's how long they've been around.
I'm like
But anyway,
having.
staying power is also Capricorn, stellium, and that's Saturn being high in the sky and domicile in Capricorn.
Oh my God. And think about it. Like Saturn and Uranus for her right now at 0 degrees
Yeah.
is experiencing this Saturn Neptune square. It's also like she's got Chiron on the Jupiter. I mean, that's Rocky's Chiron naturally. So,
Mm.
one of someone, I forget her username. I'm so sorry, but she had brought up how Rihanna's dad had passed away earlier this year, May 30th, May 31st, one of those two dates, and that how this feels like a reincarnation type of energy as well, which you think the Chiron and Jupiter and Aries, like to me that wow, that's like so loaded there. If we're thinking about if you're baking in this symbolism as
I
well.
mean, Sun on the South Node could very much be dad,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's the
Mm-hmm.
Irish connection to Rihanna's dad?
I guess to his heritage,
Oh, okay.
he's also part Irish.
Mm,
Mm-hmm. It's the
nice.
best I could find. I couldn't find anything else, so that was what made the most sense to me. You again, comments you feel free to prove me wrong
Yeah.
because, you know. But yeah, I think also what was really fascinating, and it does make me wonder if like what you call it, coordination behind the scenes, although I don't think so. I think this interview happened like a lot like in
Wait,
late
Aesop
summer.
Rocky has the same nodal structure as Rihanna? Did I know this? Oh my.
They're the same year.
Oh, okay, that tracks.
Yes. But he had his Elle magazine cover this week as well. And like I generally thought, oh, okay, cool. We get like to talk about ASAP this week. And then Rihanna drops like the bombshell like the day
Yeah.
after. I'm like, wow, they're so coordinated. It's amazing. I love this for them. But their Synastry is cute. We've never actually talked about ASAP and Rihanna, but I mean, the same nodal structure is cute.
It is like that person feels familiar. Seventh house synastry is always going to feel well if this is her birth time. But even
Mm-hmm.
like opposites with respect to him being a Libra and her having an Aries stellium is like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
what's that going on over there?
Yeah.
Both have retrograde Mercury, so I'm sure they understand each other at a level that maybe someone else wouldn't because of that
Mm-hmm.
retrograde-ness, which just makes you a divergent thinker. So that's probably really enjoyable. Really cute. I like
Hmm.
it.
It's interesting because no one knows if they're married or not, right? Like, and I think that's
Oh.
very reflective of their Mercury, Aquarius, and Libra retrograde as well. It's like again, they get each other, but no one else has to get each other. So what's good for them
Mhm.
is good for all of us. Oh, you know what? I also love that there is this Saturn and Mars synastry between them. So like ASAP Saturn on her natal Mars. And usually, right, you think Saturn Mars being like maybe onerous, but this feels maturing, you know? It's like, and I think they talk a lot about how it took them a second to get together, right? Like they kind of matured the friendship into something else. And that was the foundation, which is also very Mercury Aquarius coded.
Oh yeah, like friends first and then lovers, absolutely. Yeah, like
Hmm.
the Saturn as a guiding force for that otherwise pretty unwieldy Sag energy.
Mm.
Yeah, and I bet it's not that bad. You know, Uranus is right next door.
Yeah.
So there's not as much maybe restraint as Saturn would be normally. But yeah, I think that's something that can speak to longevity in a relationship. Like someone's just always learning from the other.
Yeah. And they're quite like independent almost, right? Because they talk a lot
Mhm.
about, we collaborate really well creatively speaking, but we also have our own creative projects. And I think naturally when, Uranus and Saturn, that is so Aquarius coded, right? Like, and so it's also another nod to her Mercury in Aquarius. Like it just kind of works with the both of them. So
It's very true. Yeah.
very cute set of charts. Is there anything else you want to say about Rihanna, Rocky, Riot, RZA, or
No,
Baby Girl
the
Rocky?
most beautiful family ever. Just just R's everywhere. I just noticed that they
Honestly,
all start with R.
this is my royal family.
Oh yeah.
Like they will eventually grow into the royal family because the monarchy, God knows how long that's gonna last. And it just feels fitting to have
It does
Rihanna and
feel fitting.
ASAP.
Yeah, they're the leaders that we need during this time. They would be like,
That
no, thank you. Like they're just very much behind the scenes type people, they seem.
they just want to do like their fun own thing.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think like do you think we're gonna get an album from Rihanna ever again?
Yeah. It's gonna come on her own time though. I wonder if
Okay.
we can speculate on it.
From
Saturn
like
getting
a
further into that Aries stellium, especially Venus, says to me, like, here's a concrete offering of music. But it can also just be like, I just dropped a different kind of beauty line, right?
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
Saturn going through that first house Aries stellium does, one, speak to legacy. It's the ruler of her 10th, but it also maybe speaks to concretizing something that has just been like in the hopes and wishes of fans.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. I'm like again, the South Node in Virgo. I appreciate that she's doing it on her own time. Maybe as like the nodes are about to leave,
Yeah.
maybe when Saturn makes it to Jupiter, node's about to leave. There's a whole 2027 situation. So
Yeah, North Node in the 11th sounds appropriate for like, I'm back. Yeah.
and it's going to be a banger because
Yeah.
undoubtedly, this was not obviously the only big sort of pop culture news. It was actually like a pretty, I think, big week for like music releases, film releases, and things like that. And I know we had talked about one battle after the after another. I was gonna say
Hmm.
one after the other, but one
I
battle
know.
after another. That came out today. Technically, the global premiere happened on September 8th, which was right around that lunar Pisces in eclipse. And there's some key players that whose charts are getting activated. Who do you want to start out with? Teyana, Regina, Leo?
Regina. Let's do Regina.
Yeah.
Underrated Regina Hall. I've loved you so.
Oh my God.
Also, like this press tour she's on, she is so funny. I didn't realize that she had the full moon between Sag and Gemini, which is like the axis of clownery. But that deadpan Mercury and Capricorn delivery is just superb.
Honestly, whenever I think of her, I think of Scary. Like her and Scary Movie are so intertwined for me. Like I cannot envision the movie without her. She's so freaking good. And Girls Trip was an amazing movie. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. But as you said, we pointed out Mars and Scorpio early. Who's it? Charlie Kirk had a Mars and Scorpio.
Hmm.
Boom.
Yeah.
Another Mars and
So
Scorpio.
Mars return, it's always going to just, kind of maybe coincide with life events that feel like super potent, or you're being amplified, or your work is being amplified in some kind of way. So yeah, it makes sense that this movie that's specifically about like guns and fighting and war and revolutionaries would be coming out during her Mars return. It's both evocative with respect to a new cycle, but it's evocative with respect to the topics of Scorpio too.
Yeah, especially the Mars Pluto. So, just in case you're curious about watching this movie, the film follows Bob Ferguson, played by Leo DiCaprio, i.e., Lenny Williams. Did you hear that? Apparently, his agent tried to change his name to Lenny Williams, saying Leo DiCaprio was too ethnic early on in his career. He
Really?
revealed that this week on the New Heights podcast, which this was Leo's first ever podcast in life. So, we'll get to his chart in a second. But yeah, can you believe Lenny Williams? LOL.
Crazy.
Anyway. Bob Ferguson's a washed up revolutionary who lives in a state of paranoia, Mars and Scorpio, with
Hmm.
his daughter when an old nemesis resurfaces after 16 years. Dun dun dun. Bob must
Hmm.
reunite with a group of ex revolutionaries to rescue Willa from a corrupt military official. Willa's his daughter. The story explores themes of fatherhood, redemption, and the consequences of past actions. Dun dun
Yeah.
dun.
Sounds very Mars Pluto and also Mars Scorpio.
It is very Mars, Pluto, and Scorpio. I think it is really interesting actually because the solar eclipse just hit her Pluto and Virgo at 29 degrees, of course.
Wow,
And,
yeah.
that's like generationally, but it just feels very striking to pull up her chart in this exact moment as this movie is about to get almost, kickstarting awards
Yes,
circuit.
this is a big deal.
Hmm. I mean, I plan on watching it. Are you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go next week. I couldn't see it before we sat down here, but I definitely plan to support sisters in film all the time.
Yes. Oh my God. Especially, I feel like if you're in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie,
Hmm.
that is that is significant. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't know if you know his filmography or are familiar with it. There Will Be
I've
Blood.
seen a lot of his films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know, this is my favorite fun fact about him. Did you know that he
Mhm.
is dating or his long-term partner is Maya
I
Rudolph?
did. I did know that. Yeah, they did a movie together, which is one of my favorite movies. I believe he directed it, called Away We Go, way back in maybe 2006 or
Hmm.
5. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure he directed that and she was starring in it. That's like one of my coming of age movies.
Oh, I actually haven't seen that. I need to like put that on my list.
Lovely. It's just a lovely
Hmm.
film.
Here we have TT's chart. Funny enough,
Oh
like I remember
boy.
watching her on MTV Super Sweet 16. Like that was
Yes.
a sick, sick birthday, but very sad coded. She's actually born, I think, 2 days before after Regina Hall.
Oh,
Funnily
yeah.
enough,
Both SAGs. Yeah.
2 days before. There we
2 days
go.
before. Yeah, that must have been such a fun set.
That would have been
But what I
amazing.
love about Tiana Taylor and what's happening to her this moment is like Uranus is activating that 0 degrees Mars in Gemini, which is what I am also living. And what I'm seeing through her is that she's reintroducing herself to the world in this completely new way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like the actress is incredible. Like just to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like curveball, I'm showing up this way. And she also has like a very close conjunction between Mercury and Uranus, which is ruling that Mars and Gemini. So the change agent, like not being able to expect, but also going back on one's word and like releasing an album. And I love how it's called escape room because like Uranus with Mars is like, let me get out of here. I gotta escape. So
Yes.
it's so on brand. Again, like these transits speak symbolically and also like literally. And for her,
Hmm.
it's just very much like I love to see what she's getting up to. It's like I didn't think I would I would say I wouldn't think she would head in this direction, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
Pluto's on her nodes as well. So she really
Yeah.
is in this intense sort of reforging in the
Resistance.
fire.
Yes.
Yeah. I also love that escape room, I think officially dropped like August 23rd maybe, which was right around that new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees.
Hmm.
So when you think about that reintroduction, it's almost like she's even reintroducing a greater capacity because I love what you said about that Jupiter in Cancer, expanding our ability to hold space, to feel a lot of
Hmm.
things. So maybe before, there might have felt more limitations around what I can and cannot choose to do with my time, Capricorn. But now I'm thinking, actually, I can do it all. Like, let's just blow through all of this?
Yes, and that's where I am. Like her
Oh,
transits are like my transits because we have such similar charts. I was born like 6 weeks after her.
oh my God. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and so I'm
right.
like, I feel some of myself in her. Like I'm doing it too, TT.
Oh, well, she also had like she got into a new relationship this year.
Oh, really?
As of like
Oh,
Feb, so like right around that Venus retrograde
oh, nice.
time, I think. Aaron, is it Aaron Paul, Aaron Pierre? I can't remember
Oh.
off the top of my head, but I know she is dating someone new this year. So this was a big, big year. And undoubtedly, when you think about also, we said in Regina's chart, she had the Pluto at Virgo at 29 degrees. So significant with this eclipse cycle and this release of the movie, she's got Venus and Sag here at 27.
Mm, yeah.
So very much also activated in a
I
different
also
way.
noticed her sun at 18 Sag, and so then
Hmm.
therefore Regina's sun a little bit, or at the bendings of the
Yes.
nodes. And so like
Yes.
major pivot with respect to identity, spotlight, right? When you're a celebrity, your sun is just like it could be so many things.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's happening for them, hopefully in a way that pivots them into like being taken more seriously.
I
Especially
think
Regina
so.
Hall. Like,
Oh my
dang.
God. I know. Justice for Regina Hall in
I
better
know.
roles. Um, I think it is worth noting, right? Like I said earlier, the film had its global premiere, or like its official premiere, September 8th, which was around that Pisces eclipse that was 15 degrees.
Mm.
This would have implicated her Sagittarius sun. And so when you bring in Venus into the mix, right? Like just zoning in on her story, um, it kind of feels like, yeah, sun, I come to prominence, maybe,
Yeah.
in this like select group, this
Yeah.
niche group. Venus, I get introduced more to the masses as a serious actress in this capacity. I don't think she's had a role like this. Like this is a pretty intense role for her.
Yeah, and I saw her acting debut in Straw, the Taraji P. Henson movie
Hmm.
on Netflix, and I saw her in that. And then I saw like the trailer for One Battle After Another, and I was like, wait, what is that the Teyana I just saw? Like kissing
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio? So yeah,
Which I'm not
unexpected.
I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw the trailer and thought, wait a minute, why is it Leo? Like my thought was like, couldn't you have found a more attractive or better dude for her in this capacity? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening here? Because I mean, I don't know where you stand about Leo.
Yeah, he's a great actor. I feel like that it came down to that. And he has this whole history of like he used to be like the heartthrob. And so that still like carries through a little bit. It's like attached to his name. Oh, it's
Ugh.
Leonardo DiCaprio. Not that I
Ugh.
care about it. That never worked on me.
Then
I never had like a Leo like fan phase.
like
No.
not a thing. I wonder, you know what? I wonder if like, your chart's similar to Tiana's. Like, I wonder if
Yes.
she felt the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep
Maybe.
down. But it's so interesting to see his reputation take, not to say a nosedive, because people still clearly like want to work with him as a serious actor, right? But in terms of pop culture, fodder, online chit chat, he's kind of the creepy old dude in the room.
Yeah. But he's never done anything like quote unquote illegal. He just like dates people 25 years younger than him. Is that
Right.
okay? So
Yeah.
she's just like
Yeah.
a sleaze. Yeah. I can
Well,
see
he
why they
was
would be like, whatever, sweep that under the rug. Let's cast him.
He was always a juxtaposition, naturally Libra. Let's hold two contradictory truths. Big on the environment, big on the Prius. I think he literally made the Prius happen. But then he's also on these yachts, with these young models. So you're just like,
What are actually your values?
correct. As a Libra rising person, I need to understand. And he's also Mars in Scorpio.
Yeah, so the third one, and Venus and Scorpio, just like Regina had. So, like, them being together during this moment makes a lot of sense. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
was just thinking, just with respect to Leonardo DiCaprio and having Pluto on the ascendant in Libra, is like someone who's like impervious. Like someone who
Mm.
just maybe whose power has eclipsed anything that can come out about them and will just keep being cast and cast and cast and cast. So maybe that's one of the
Yes.
ways you can look at your Pluto, just unkillable. You can't put me down or in a
You
corner.
you know what? I think he has a cheat code. I feel like if you have Pluto on the ascendant, yeah, you should just go be an actor, because that is the best cheat code at redirecting energy.
Ooh.
Because in my head, acting gives you an outlet to put on a role and channel the emotions necessary. And then when you're done with the role, you're done with that. So you transform into something else.
Mhm.
So you get to bypass your own personal development as such because you're redirecting the energy so nothing ever like that bad happens, you know what I mean? So I was just thinking about it this week. I'm like, there's so many different ways Mars and Pluto could play out, but how Mars Pluto has come out in my life this week, one, I had a cold sore, lol. Two, I went to go see two distinct plays, both
Mm.
of which were really like Scorpio. I mean, I'm talking about incest, I'm talking about murder, I'm talking about rape, I'm talking about like all these things under the guise of like some dark humor, okay? And like the
Yeah.
people who I went to go see it with were like, I'm so sorry. Like that was so much deeper than I anticipated. I'm like, it's Mars Pluto. I was totally ready for
Yes.
it.
Totally deeper than we anticipate. That's a huge like headline for these times. Like, oop, you stepped
Literally.
into the deep end.
It's like that sinkhole in the street, with the
Yes.
puddle, and you're like, all of a sudden
You
you've
can't
now
step on it.
broken your ankle. Yup.
Absolutely.
Yup.
Yeah.
I think you know what? I just noticed this too. What do you make of people with Sun in between their Mars and Venus? Because Blake Lively also has that, and they actually had a little thing like way back in the day. But I've always wondered, like, because Venus and Mars together feels tense, right? Like you're trying to get your way, you're trying to relate to people. So there's almost like a how do I assert my power? How do I relate? But then with the sun in the middle, like
Yeah. That's
that's a lot.
interesting. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Sana self as like taking on the like who do I need to be in this moment? Do I need to be Mars or do I need to be Venus? I think is what
Mm-hmm.
the sun is facilitating there.
Mm.
And sometimes depending on I guess like whatever the answer is, like you would then imbue that energy with like the solar energy and like make it bigger and more prominent.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. I also see it as like an identity that is trapped between like the needs and wants of others versus like the things that you personally maybe want to do as well. Venus
Mm-hmm.
does defer. And he is a Libra rising, so it's the ruler of his chart. Mars
Mm.
in Scorpio is empowered and it wants to do its own thing. So this could be like the double speak or like, talking out of both sides of his mouth where he's like, yeah, the
Mm.
Prius, but also yachts.
The Prius and the pussy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Jupiter Pisces in a hidden house is nefarious.
Mm. On Juno, everyone's his
Yeah.
soulmate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kidding, not everyone, the young models, because that's so Jupiter and Pisces.
Oh
Fucking
my God. Yeah.
hell.
And Lilith in the fifth. Yeah. Yeah.
This is his type. What I did think is interesting is his Libra rising's at 3 degrees. Obviously, another Saturn Neptune situation, both in Tiana Taylor's chart, but then in his chart too, in his seventh
Yeah.
house. Oh my God, is he gonna finally commit? Is he gonna
I
get
don't know.
married?
I don't know. You know what I was thinking? Saturn fallen in Cancer is one of the reasons. Like when Saturn isn't empowered, maybe you don't like aging or you don't respect the process of aging. And because that rules his fourth house, and you're like, is he ever going to settle down? No. That
Yeah.
Saturn is so preoccupied with something else, like career, but also like yuck, age. Let me just
What?
relive my glory days. And again, date people who are just younger than me and impressionable. That's also Pluto. It's like, let me be the
Yeah.
most powerful person in the room. And one of the ways you
Yeah.
do that de facto is having more age and wisdom on the person you're with. Anyway, we can
Mm.
do a whole spinoff.
We totally, yes. It's actually really interesting you bring that up, that Saturn in Capricorn, because it does trine into his sun. So it's like, yeah, I don't think he's ever gonna, that makes sense. I don't think he's ever gonna change.
No, yeah, I think his life is career. Like that's like the main thing for him. I don't know that it's family or settling down. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. What I will say is Saturn and Neptune, they're gonna perfect around that like Feb 13th, no, Feb 20th time frame, which is like at the end of the awards junket. I think the Oscars come shortly thereafter.
Mm,
So it is interesting, to think that people with cardinal placements of that early degree may be having like a big moment at the Oscars.
yeah.
Because I can only assume he's gonna get like Oscar buzz around this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. At least the nomination.
Hmm.
Did he finally win? He finally got his Oscar, right?
He did for something I didn't
That wasn't The
think.
Revenant.
Yeah, what did he ultimately win for? The Revenant?
No, he didn't win for that. And I
He
feel like
didn't win for
he
the
then won an Oscar to like
shit.
make up for the fact that he didn't win. Let me look it up.
They do this all the time. It is infuriating. I'm
I
like,
know.
you know what? I think the best role that he has ever played, if he played his chart, was Gatsby. Because
Mhm.
Great Gatsby is so
Yeah.
this. I am stuck in the past. I am stuck in the memory of what this was, and for him too, his age and his prime, I guess. But yeah,
That
I
also just makes sense. Like Saturn and Cancer would be stuck in the past. Like Cancer is always looking back. It's nostalgic, and
don't know.
Saturn can crystallize and like just rigidify that, and you're always there. But it's also the ruler of his fourth, and I think of the fourth house as like looking back, and it's the highest planet in his chart. So maybe the past just has a deep effect on him.
Interesting.
His own past, but also maybe he loves history, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the
Interesting.
roles that he chooses.
This was I don't know that much about Leo DiCaprio, okay? When he gets, fully committed in a relationship, that's maybe when I'll do a deep dive on him. But it was interesting to hear that whole Lenny Williams situation, how his dad actually like tore up the picture of it when he was a kid and saying, "You're not gonna over my dead body, you're gonna be Lenny
Wait, what?
Williams." So on New Heights, Leo said, that whole thing about his agent saying you need to change your name to Lenny Williams. And so Leo said I showed my dad like my headshot with the name Lenny Williams because I think Williams or was his middle name. And his dad was like over my dead body and like ripped the picture up. So I'm also like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's
Like,
very Saturn too. Like we're keeping
absolutely.
the family name. Also, correction, I was wrong. He did win for The Revenant, and I think the joke was he had to fight a
Kill a
bear.
bear.
Yes.
Yes.
To
Which
finally
is which is actually also very like Saturn, like Cancer and
win.
like
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, like fighting for survival, like living inside the carcass of an animal.
yeah, he
Mm.
really got pushed. The problem when you're so good, when you're so consistently good, is that people always assume there is gonna be more. Because I think he suffers from the same shit as Beyonce with the Libra stellium, you know what I mean? Where
Oh,
there is such this expectation of excellence. And so you don't give them album of the year. You have to push them to such artistic heights and
yeah.
then finally be like, okay, like it's so undeniable. It's so obvious now we have to give it to you. But I just find it interesting both Beyonce and Leo have these Libra stelliums, but they're not like the most winningest. I mean, she's won the most Grammys, but when it comes to like, Oscar for Best Actor or Album of the Year, right? Like that's
Yeah.
more
Like they're
elusive.
distinguished in their fields, even if the accolades don't necessarily like match with that. And I also
Hmm.
just noticed the mutual reception between his moon and Saturn. So there is a little bit of that like exalted Saturn story in his chart too. Like I am just like the cream of the crop, the best of the
Hmm.
best, like Beyonce. Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting. I'm gonna bring up one last person just to add another Mars Scorpio to the mix. This was someone you had texted me about.
Greta.
Yes, ma'am. There you
There she is.
are. Obviously, we mentioned the flotilla earlier. She was part of the Freedom Flotilla earlier this year. She is back as part of the Global Samud Flotilla. And look at that, she's also got a Venus and Mars and Scorpio.
Yeah, and I also just realized Freedom Flotilla is so Neptune in Aries, like freedom through
Yes.
the sea. I'm sure like everyone has said that already, but I had to get that out.
Isn't that so striking though? Like when you think of symbol, you could not ask for more literal symbolism.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, wow, I can't believe this thing works, astrology. Yeah, but
It,
she has, I'm sorry, the Mars Venus thing. So a lot of
yeah.
these energies are being highlighted right now.
Yes. Again, it kind of is awesome doing this weekly because it's like, wow, you really see like some people's charts like, oh, no, everything is happening everywhere all at once.
Yes.
What I was gonna say is I think the flotillas have been happening since Neptune moved into Aries,
Yeah.
as you said. So, and they haven't been like officially that successful yet.
Right.
Right. So I'm wondering if when Neptune moves back into Pisces, which is happening in the couple, like the third week in October,
Mm.
you know, more ease from the water, more help from the water.
Yeah.
Maybe crossing fingers. Hopefully, like they get there sooner before that and it's okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Greta's also going to be going through her Jupiter return, not this year, but next year, which is
Mhm.
interesting. I wish we had like also her birth time, but
Yeah.
it makes sense that she's a young elder with that Capricorn sun, Chiron and Cap on her
Mhm.
sun.
Yeah, young elder. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I also
Hmm.
think like Jupiter retrograde in Leo gives a little bit of that vibe as well, just like wisdom pouring out from such a young age. And it's like prophetic, not prophetic, but it's like it captures a global consciousness, which is the opposition then to Neptune and Aquarius. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
a really remarkable person.
I mean, I was gonna say prophetic Neptune, like
Mm.
she is the future. And she is
Mm.
terrifying. If you are, I feel like I've heard the wealthy elite talk about her as if she is, you know what I mean, like the biggest mob boss in the room, or like the big final boss. Like she's literally still a child. It's actually kind of hilarious.
Yeah, they did like a really interesting like roast meme where they were like
Mhm.
on the flotilla and she was like talking sarcastically about like, no, but now celebrities are paying attention. You so she was acknowledging it, but also like doing the Mercury Capricorn like sarcasm thing.
Yes.
And I was like, ouch, Greta, you're spicy. But I love it. Because I was also like, yeah,
Necessary.
celebrities co-signing this doesn't make it any more real, I guess. But yeah.
It is interesting, right? Because again, you always struggle with this duality, of how soon have you come online? How soon have you been privy to this? And always usually a marker of your privilege and your nurturance, I guess. But who is it? Jeffrey Wolf Green talked a lot about, excuse me, how 70% of the collective is actually like unconscious.
Mm.
And it's really like 20 and 10, like some they're self-aware and then there's like super, super conscious people. And when you think about, okay, like as an astrologer working with people, right? Like you also see how long it takes for people to actually like enact some of the changes or
Totally.
like, oh, I got the hit and I got the insight, but oh, it is going to take me months to actually implement this, right? And you think about that on a mass scale. So, some people come online sooner than others, but putting a dent in that 70% consciousness is fucking
That's true.
difficult.
That's true.
Oh my God. So
Yeah.
I know it's probably easier for people to come online now and speak their truth, and it's easier
Mm.
for other people to then get upset about it, like you should have come in sooner. But again, I'm gonna channel some Whoopi Goldberg, and I'm just glad you're here. Let's just keep making progress.
That's true. Let's do it.
Yes.
But I understand the cynicism. I understand both
Yes.
and it's
Both
Libra
and.
season.
It's Libra season. And you know what? We all have roles to play in the collective, and this is my stance that I feel super passionately about. It's like if you have space to hold for people that need a little more hand-holding, great. Maybe that's your role to be that bridge, right? Other people who have been online a little longer, maybe their patience is this big and
Minute.
they want
Yeah.
to go do something else that's more effective, but they're more advanced, so they should be doing more advanced things, right? So again, maybe your role is to hold space for people and like to help bridge the divide. And that
Yeah,
takes a lot of patience,
it is.
to be
Totally
honest.
agree.
Anything you want to say in relation to next week? Are you looking forward to anything? Have you looked at next week? Are you like, I'm just happy I got through this week?
I'm happy I got through this week, and what you and the audience should know is that this podcast is helping me with transits because I know where everything is generally. But yeah, being able to be like super conscious of like the energy shifts, right, that happen
Mhm.
maybe when an aspect goes exact or when, an ingress happens. So next week, I'm looking forward to see how more of this Mars in Scorpio is going to play
Mhm.
out. I'm
Mhm.
interested to see if the trine between Jupiter and Saturn will give us anything starting next
Mhm.
week, maybe some
Mm.
relief. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Otherwise, I think most of the planets are in the same places for a bit.
Yeah, next week it will be interesting because if you're like big on the vision boarding shit, and you are setting your New Year's resolutions, we are officially coming into our first quarter Capricorn moon that would
Mhm.
have been seated at around December 31st, 2024. So like those New Year's resolutions that you set for 2025, you're going to be maybe getting some information, about how has that plan been really going, and it's kind of a time to like actively make some changes, dump some people, align with better people, it depends on your chart, but this will again be very interesting because Trump and Netanyahu will be meeting on that first quarter moon. So we
Mm,
shall see what next week
we shall
brings.
see.
But so fun. So fun. So
Always.
fun, Camille. Even when we talk about serious stuff, it's always good
Yeah.
to process.
I hope the audience feels a sense of relief, just like talking through it all, understanding it, unpacking it, done. Let's
Yeah.
move on into Monday. Or I guess the weekend, because the
Yes.
world won't stop for the weekend.
The world really won't stop for the weekend. So
Yeah.
again, we try our best to recap the events from the week, Monday through Friday. If anything comes up Saturday, that's not on us.
Something would happen in an hour, Tasha.
That's not on us. We're off the clock. But if
Mm.
there's something you want us to touch on from the week that you're like, in case you're not going to touch on this, drop us a DM. Let us know. Link it, like chat to us, comments, etc.
Yeah.
We welcome suggestions. But thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to keep this as weekly as possible, hence weekly-ish recap. So we'll be back soon with another weekly recap. Like, subscribe, share.
All right, signing off. This has been Signs and Headlines. Bye.